Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and this is, I was videoing this yesterday. I literally saw a tornado starting to form right in front of me yesterday when we had storms coming through. I just wanted to show this to you. It's unbelievable.
That's exactly what it is.
You can see it here. It'll start literally spinning. There was like an area right in front of me where the cold air was meeting the hot air, and it was trying to form a tornado. That's the closest I think I've ever been to a tornado forming.
Right there forms up.
Watch right here when it starts to spin.
What in the world?
I'm scared to see what's about to happen.
Right there. It literally looked like it was about to spin into a funnel cloud right there, and we were about to head to the basement. Okay, this is an older clip. This is when Brad Garlinghouse was in Switzerland, but it was going around, and it was a question that was asked that I thought was interesting. This is Barry Eichengreen. He's a professor, as I recall, at Berkeley. And later on, David Schwartz did an interview with him.
The question, and Brad, this is an honest question. Ripple is, one of your products is to distribute liquidity through the payments system. So the question is, could there be a run on Ripple? In other words, everybody wants your liquidity. Nobody wants to provide it because there is a scenario where people develop doubts for good reasons or bad about the system.
Ooh.
The question, and
wait a minute.
Brad.
Pause that. Okay. Now, this is what everybody's talking about this morning. And look at the quote from Brad Combs Digital Perspectives. This is a David Schwartz quote in this clip I'm about to play you. The success scenario is a currency no one controls. If the choice is no boss that happens to make a bunch of cryptocurrency people rich, I don't think they're going to see that as much of a minus. Two world reserve currencies can exist at the same time. Now, folks, this is the kind of talk that we've been covering since the inception of my channel and a lot of channels on XRP, YouTube, or whatever. See, there's a defining difference between myself. I would say there's a handful of people that are in the camp that I'm in on this. Is I've seen Ripple executives and people that were involved in Ripple from the beginning. I've heard them use the phrase world reserve currency or world reserve digital currency. I've heard them say phrases like they wanted to be a lender of last resort and all these type things. I've heard all these words that came out of Ripple. The difference between myself and a lot of people out there is I believe them. I don't, as I sit here today, see what I've watched occur over the course of the last 5 years in this is many people who used to believe their words got discouraged over time because the market didn't do anything. Well, with anything that would be this kind of big, it's not going to happen overnight. It's something that's going to take some time. And so, but I don't have any reason not to believe them. And an indicator for me has never been that the market has not gone up or down. I've always seen this thing that we're talking about here, Ripple and XRP, as a once in 100 to 200 year chance. I've always seen it as my chance at possibly being able to get a tiny sliver to be in the room at Jekyll Island when Federal Reserve was formed. That's how I've always seen this. And I've never been swayed from that because there's not been anything that has happened to change my mind. The markets, the day-to-day markets don't mean anything. The people that chase that crap are the Ethereum Bitcoin people. That's not what we're a part of here is much bigger to me than all of that. So listen to this, and then I'll tell you a story. Something, I've told it before, but I'll tell it again. Listen to this. This is David Schwartz in a Twitter Spaces.
Do you believe that there can be two existing world reserve currencies to simultaneously exist?
I do, and I think that could happen. I think it's quite realistic that a lot of the world is just done with the dollar as their reserve currency. And I think that there's a lot of places that are willing to try something else. And one of my scenarios, and I don't think it's going to play out quickly, but like one of my wild case success scenarios for a digital asset is if countries start to realize that the US dollar is not going to be the reserve currency forever. Other things are going to be the reserve currency. And the same thing that we saw with banks. Like people, when we started selling software to banks, people would say to me, why would a bank use something that like you guys were selling them when they could use something that was like made by banks? And what they didn't realize is that, only like 10 banks in the country, on the planet, are Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Credit Suisse, JP Morgan Chase, like the ones who would build a system that the entire planet would run on. For the rest of the banks, that's 6,000 smaller banks, those are their biggest, strongest competitors. Those are the entities they hate the most. They would not want to use the system built and maintained by them because it's going to be biased in favor of them, their biggest and strongest competitors. And I think the same thing could happen to nations. Like every nation would love for their currency to be the world reserve currency. That's helped the U.S., that's...
While I'm sitting here listening to this, think about anytime one of us says anything like what's being said here, all of these crypto police and everybody, they're like, oh, you can't say that. That's hype. My question is, why are they not accusing you'll notice they never accuse David Schwartz of hype. But if anything's hype, the idea of floating the idea that a crypto could be a world reserve currency, is that not hype? I mean, that's about as hypey as you can get. Well, I think he's telling the truth, which is why I don't consider it hype. I think this is actually something that could happen.
The U.S. economy, quote unquote, unfairly by leaps and bounds for decades, and every other country.
And it makes sense.
We'd like to have the world be the world's reserve currency, but the only countries that could possibly pull it off is the U.S. holding its position. Maybe the EU, maybe Russia, maybe one or two others. But realistically, most countries know that if there's going to be a new world reserve currency that's a country's currency, it's not going to be them. And so they might actually prefer a currency that nobody can control to one that's controlled by their largest geopolitical rivals. And so that's like what I think is the biggest possible success scenario for digital assets.
XRP.
If these countries are like,
he didn't say it, but he sure acted like he was about to say it.
Okay, well, the U.S. dollar can't hold on forever, but it's not going to be our currency because no one's going to want to repeat the U.S. dollar. Nobody but the EU wants the EU to replace the dollar, right? Nobody but Russia wants the ruble to replace the dollar. Nobody but China wants the yuan to replace the dollar. So maybe they could settle on a currency that nobody could control rather than one controlled by their most powerful geopolitical rival. So if you want a success scenario, that's the one that I think is the most likely.
But the money question is, how do you get everybody to agree?
That's an easy answer. The way you get everybody to agree is create a situation where everybody gets rich. All the countries involved get rich off of the situation, which is what I've always thought the concept of pre-allocation could be, is if everybody stands to gain by doing this thing and they've tested the system to know that they don't have to trust each other, everybody wins.
Well, I mean, they might agree if the alternative is that their geopolitical rivals force some new replacement for the dollar that's not, if they just replace, the old boss with a new boss. If the choice is no boss, if that happens to make a bunch of cryptocurrency people rich, I don't think they're going to see that as too much of a minus.
That's good.
Yeah. As long as
it's
they
great
get
talking
rich.
to you guys.
I got one question. Just
make no mistake. Anybody who tells you that this is not about the money and not about the price is lying. It's all about the price. It's all. If they say it's not about the money, it's about the money. Period. That's life. Grow up. And I know Ripple politically could not say those things, especially during and before that lawsuit. But it's always about the money, and that's the fact, Jack. And grow up if you think otherwise. This is Brad Combs when we were at Swell 2019. This was Brad Combs. I was sitting, you might be able to see me there because I was sitting somewhere over to the right of him in front up there. And anyway, but this is Brad Combs, and he's asking the guy that was the Federal Reserve Bank head of India, I believe, this Raghuram Rashan. He's asking them if he thought XRP could be like the bank core. Here it is.
I want to ask a question about globalization. If you could talk about the idea of the old concept of the bank or coin and a neutral asset being in place of a global reserve status of the dollar, and possibly that being XRP.
You know, what you're asking for is whether there's a possibility of a global currency, and to some extent that's what Libra was trying to do. And as I understand it, that's different from what XRP is trying to do. And the reason it is as follows. As soon as you go to maintaining the value, right, some kind of stable coin, a whole set of regulatory concerns get triggered. I have to make sure that there is corresponding financial or real assets backing this notion of value.
All right. So after that, Brad Combs saw David Schwartz get up and walk out of the room. Brad Combs later told me this story. He follows David Schwartz out of the room to see if he was out of line in asking that question, and David Schwartz said something to the effect of, "Well, no. If it's not going to be, it's not, or something to the effect of, who else is going to do it? China? In other words, nobody would trust a China as a world reserve currency or a bridge currency because it's communist. The only thing that has ever made any sense, folks, is this world reserve currency status that nobody keeps for any period of time, is that it would be some type of a shared situation going forward. And it's not a coincidence that guys like Brad Garlinghouse said these kind of things. Like I said, the difference between me and a lot of people out there is Ripple has said all of these things, and that's what has struck me. That's the reason that I've been here all this time, is who says this kind of stuff? Not in my lifetime have I ever heard anybody from private companies saying these kind of things. This is why I'm here.
Well, so when XRP was created, this actually was created before Ripple existed. The creators of XRP decided there'd be 100 billion units because they saw it as rather than having a smaller number with a very high price, they saw it as something they wanted to be effectively a global reserve currency. A global reserve currency.
Now, check this out from this MC Hammer. I like that. China just made a significant game-changing move that could be about to hit the price of Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, XRP, Cardano, Dogecoin, Tron, Polygon, Solana. This is a Forbes article, and basically the article is about, it's one of those little nothing articles, but it says China is approving basically some Chinese type exchanges to start trading in these things, and that could be a boost for the price. Now, I saw this tweet from Stuart Eldar this weekend, and I couldn't see who made the comment that irritated him. And so but this morning I did see who it was, but he says, not surprising you're trying to rewrite history given you wrongly predicted Ripple would lose. Well, I saw this from Mr. Huber this morning, and he says apparently it's this guy. Not only Miles Jennings also was Joseph Lubin's lawyer at the fraudulent ICO factory Token Foundry, his words not mine, and is a good friend of Bill Hinman. And he's retweeting the tweet from Stuart Eldar. So apparently it was Miles Jennings. Well, I didn't realize it, but I went to look at Miles Jennings, and it turns out that Miles Jennings has blocked me. I don't even remember this guy from us uncovering ETHgate, but it did raise my curiosity, so I went and looked, and apparently he is now, go figure, he's now at A16Z, folks. He's the something of decentralization, and so he's right there with Bill Hinman now. And look, these folks, they didn't have to block us. They could have just come on and addressed all of these things, but none of them seem to want to talk about any of this stuff. Wall Street Bulls, XRP's XLS 30D proposal is revolutionizing the crypto space. Imagine banks and corporates injecting billions into AMMs and XRPL, creating whirlpool of liquidity. Retail investors, you're not left out. Dive in, swap assets, and reap rewards from the market's dynamism. Did I say that right? Dynamism. Plus, with continuous auctions, arbitrage has never been more enticing. The future of crypto is here, and it's decentralized, dynamic, and downright lucrative. I love it. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe. Hit the like button and tell your friends and family that the digital asset investor was almost in a tornado yesterday. Thanks for listening.